town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker.
Hey everyone, happy Thursday. It's second week of October. You know what that means. You've got me solo here tonight, just talking a little bit about episode 2 of season 5. So, welcome. Hope everyone is doing well, having a great October so far, enjoying the new season. I'm having a blast with this. This season is a really good one that I've really enjoyed putting together. Hope you guys have enjoyed learning about some of these locations. Again, some of them are new on the scene. Some of them are well, they're all technically new, but some of them have never been investigated before. So anyways, if you watched this past week, you'll see that I traveled down to Mississippi to the old Atala jail, and this one was it was really interesting. I think this episode we've actually filmed back in 2020, and so just now putting that out. At that time, the location had only been opened. I believe it opened the end of 2019, or excuse me, the end of 2019, I believe. And so we ended up investigating there early 2020. But before we get into that, just kind of want to talk a little bit about a few interesting things that's going on with Ghost Biker Explorations, as well as the historic Scott County Jail. It's October, so there really is a whole lot of things going on. The leaves are changing, the weather's getting a little bit cooler, and it's great motorcycle riding time. So just want to talk a little bit about this awesome event that we've got going up. We still have a few tickets left. Let me pull up my screen here. StreamYard's kind of changed what they call the buttons here at the bottom. So bear with me just a second as I get this pulled up. We're very excited about this event that actually starts tomorrow. It was originally supposed to be the first weekend in October. However, it did get changed due to Hurricane Ian that was coming through the area, and we were concerned, with the motorcycle ride and the event. We wanted everyone to be able to have a wonderful experience. So we did end up postponing that, which did, kind of several people, they, weren't able to make the date change. So we do have some open spots, but starting tomorrow night I believe it's at 6 p.m., we're going to be at at Wildcat Harley Davidson for a meet and greet. I always love these meet and greets, especially at Harley, because Harley provides free food for people. I think we're having free hamburgers and hot dogs, may even be free beer. I'm not exactly sure on that. You'll have to come and find out for sure. But I'm going to be doing a presentation. I've got Ghost Biker merchandise. Going to be doing a presentation talking about where we're going to be going on the ride on Saturday. Also going to be talking about what I do, season 5, some of the cool locations that I've investigated in Kentucky, as well as some of the really cool rides and local haunted locations around Kentucky. Going to be sharing a little bit of that in a presentation. But all in all, it's going to be a good opportunity for bikers, paranormal investigators, history, historians, enthusiasts to come out to Wildcat Harley Davidson in London, Kentucky, have a conversation, see some Ghost Biker merchandise, watch the presentation, and really just have a good chat. That's going to be from 6 to 8 tomorrow. They're actually keeping the store open late for us, and the link is there on the bottom. It's free. You don't have to register for that, but we're just trying to kind of find out what's going on and who's coming. Also, early on Saturday morning, I believe the motorcycle ride is technically sold out, but we are going to be going, and it's a 4-hour motorcycle ride, about 148 stops. I'm sorry, It is a 4-hour motorcycle ride, 148 miles, 4 stops, and we're going to be having lunch at the Sanders Cafe. We're going to be stopping by the Wildcat Battlefield, and we're going to be, they're actually going to have their reenactment crew there. They're going to be lighting off the cannons for us when we ride. That's going to be our first stop, as well as, like I said, there's 4 different stops. So, that there might be a spot open, but at this point it is sold out. But you just never know. Check with us tomorrow night and make sure that, or even Saturday morning. I think kickstands up is at 9 a.m. So, again, there could be some spots open due to people's schedules, but as of right now, it is sold out and it is free. Now, this particular event that we got up on the screen here, we do actually still have a few tickets left for that, and that is an investigation that's it starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it's at the Levi Jackson Wilderness Road Park. And I'm going to be leading that. We are keeping the numbers small. We're keeping it to 14 investigators. This park is really interesting. London, Kentucky is a pioneer town, and I believe there's 5 different buildings on the property that you'll be able to investigate with me. We're also going to be going to the largest Indian massacre site. It's just down from this, so we will be walking down there. It's got a fascinating story. I'm not going to go into detail on that tonight. However, we did have the folks from we had Kelly from the London Laurel Tourism Commission, as well as Chris from Harley Davidson, that came on and talked on a previous episode where you can hear some of these stories. But I will be sharing some pictures probably after this episode airs. I drove up to London, Kentucky to kind of check things out and took some photographs along the time that I was up there. So I'll go ahead and release those. And so if you've got some free time on Saturday night and want to come out and investigate, we do have spots open. It's $40 for a ticket per person, and all the funds go to Laurel County Shop with a Cop, which is a great cause. And it really helps these children out in these rural communities at Christmas time. So we're really happy to partner with them on that. And then, of course, on Sunday, I believe that this one is officially sold out. We did have to add another ticket, I believe, but it is a private tour of the Great Saltpeter Caverns there in London, Kentucky. And this place is really cool. They only open it once a year. And on that day, they have thousands of people that go through this cave. There's an amazing history with that we're going to be talking about when we go on that cave tour on Sunday. So if you've signed up for these different events, thank you. And I can't wait to see you all this weekend. If you've not and you would like to be involved, come by to the meet and greet and also do the investigation. I have the link on my website where you can find out more information on that. And also you can go to the Wildcat Harley Davidson website. You can also go to the London Laurel, I forget the address. I'll have to go back and add it in here, but the London Laurel Tourism Commission, they also have the event information as well. So like I said, jam-packed weekend, getting ready for that tonight, wrapping up my presentation here, and going to head on up to Kentucky tomorrow morning and get things ready for the event. But I want to say hello to a few people here in the audience. Thank you guys so much in the chat room for joining us tonight. Thank you for watching the show the other night. Hello to Janet, Nancy. Janet, thank you for watching and for your comments on episode 2. Episode 2, like I said, it was a lot of fun to put these together. And being that it was one that was filmed in 2020, it was really fun to go back and put it together, because honestly, I had kind of forgotten just all the evidence that was captured. There were a few interesting things that stood out in my mind that we'll get to when we're talking about the episode. But for the most part, I'd honestly forgotten about how much activity we had that night. Mitchell, Mark, thank you guys so much for coming in. Hello, Dr. Sumner. Thank you so much for joining us. Jess Rogie. Thank you from the Jess Rogie Show. Appreciate you tuning in as well. And then we've got Jimmy Brown on here, the Late Late Horror Show, and Amber Bolin. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. It's it's always wonderful to have you guys on here. And if you have any questions or any comments about the latest episode, please feel free to put those in the comment section. If you don't mind, put them all in all caps, just so as I'm going back, I don't miss you and miss your comments whenever we're doing this. So again, just a couple more things that I want to highlight here before we get on to highlighting the episode. We also have a really cool event if you're in the East Tennessee area, and if you're not and want to make a trip, we would love to see you at our Living History experience that's going to be going on at the historic Scott County Jail. This is a unique experience and a unique tour. So we're opening up the jail on October 21st and 22nd from 7 to 9 p.m. We're only selling a limited number of tickets. We're only selling 100 tickets per night. And essentially, you're going to get to come in, and we're partnering with the Oneida High School Drama Club. These students have put a lot of work into bringing these characters that the jail, or the stories from these characters at the jail, to life. And so you get to come in, tour the jail by lantern light, hear the stories of some of the most infamous characters in there. Sheriff Richard Ellis, Jerome Boyett, the folks who were there at various times whenever the mobs came in and pulled some of these inmates out, some of the moonshiners, just to name a few. I mean, we've got these stories, and we're very, very excited about bringing this life in our partnership with the Oneida Drama Club. So we still have some tickets available. Those tickets will be going fast. At this time, we won't be selling tickets at the door. That could change, but at this time, we won't be selling those. And you'll be coming in. It's about a 30 to 35-minute experience of walking through, and you'll be able to, we'll be sending groups of 6 in about every 8 minutes. And so get your tickets early, and get them before they sell out, because they should go pretty quick as it gets a little bit closer. And so again, October 22nd and 21st. And that's going to be, you can get those on the Historic Scott County Jail website, www.historicscottcojail.com. And it's under the events section. One more little thing that I want to pull up here, because I'm pretty excited about it. If you've been following the page, you'll see that I mentioned this on on my page. We love Octagon Hall. Recently just had an Octagon Hall event at, I believe it was September 10th with Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters, where we did a group investigation there. Real excited about this. As you guys know, a lot of you, I'm an artist, and Octagon Hall used my drawing of the hall on their sign at the front. So Bear had mentioned it to me and asked if I was okay with that when we were up there for the event, and definitely truly honored, by this, and that that he wanted to use my drawing to do that. So pretty excited about it. I shared it on my page, and we have highlighted an episode from Octagon Hall last season. It was episode 3 of season 4. So just kind of wanted to mention that, because it's something as an artist that I'm really proud of. And I love drawing these historic buildings, and sharing that passion, and combining that with Ghost Biker is something I absolutely love. So just kind of wanted to share that. So like I said, just kind of looking here at the comments. D Hoot says, I believe I saw another investigation at this jail on SSP. Yeah. So this weekend, this is an interesting point, because in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, there are 2 locations. They're ran by Southern Paranormal, which is Donald Martin and the late Doyle Goss. And so they would run the old Attala County Jail as well as the old Southern Funeral Home. And so these locations, they're roughly, I think, about maybe 10 minutes apart. And so when you book one, they have it set up really cool to where you can technically make a weekend of it and book the two locations. So the very first time, I was the first person to investigate the funeral home back in early 2019. And so they didn't have the jail at that point in time. And so investigated it, got some great activity, highlighted it in season 2, and then invited back a year later to investigate the jail whenever they ended up opening it. Actually, I think they opened it toward the end of 2019, and so I knew with these guys, with Doyle and Donald, running a tight ship and running these great locations, I wanted to make sure to make it back up there. So ended up reaching out to Soul Sisters because they were wanting to also investigate as well. So they came up from Florida. I came down from Tennessee. And the way we booked it, so I booked a full weekend there. Excuse me. I investigated the funeral home on that Friday night. They investigated the jail. And then we switched out and I investigated the jail on that Saturday night. So this was a complete alone solo investigation. Now, Dr. Sumner did come over. She did assist with filming a little bit of the B-roll of the setup shots. And then also, so she left. She went back to see Jenny and to investigate the funeral home. Then I think I investigated about 5.5, 6 hours by myself, and then ended up doing a live. And so we did highlight the live during the investigation video there. And then not long after that live, Dr. Sumner called. They were taking a break over there. And so I asked her if she would mind coming over and assisting me with an Estes method session. When you're investigating alone, unfortunately, you're kind of limited on some of the things you can do. If I could figure out how to do one of those completely solo, I'd totally love to be able to do that. But for an Estes method to be successful, you've got to have, a person in a completely other area asking questions. And of course, you're in there in the sensory deprived state, blindfolded, noise canceling headphones and such. So we were able to film that. She stuck around for a spirit box session. And it was, like I said, really, really active. It was cool, the different areas of this jail and how they, how they came to life at different times of the night. So I think I believe I had 6 static cameras set up, as well as 8 different recorders, one of those recorders being a mobile recorder. And then, of course, I had my camera that I carried around with me and filmed vlog style or YouTuber style. So pretty well had the location covered. I don't really have a lot of photos of the outside of the jail, but it is one story, kind of rancher style. It is connected. There is an administration building and it connects to the main jail, kind of with this little overhang drive-through porch area that you can go through. But definitely, pretty large complex. It has, let's see, it had 24 beds, and it was in operation from 1957 until 2016. And so at the time that the jail closed, it was the oldest jail in operation there in Mississippi by the time that the jail had closed in 2016. So let's see. I'm going to look over here. Like I said, look over here at the questions. Janet says, how many total cells does it have? I know that it had 24 beds, and some of these cells were pretty much broke into bullpen areas. I honestly can't remember exactly how many cells it had. I believe it had three or 4 bullpens. It had a solitary confinement. Thank you. Dr. Sumner says it had 11 cells total. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't weren't there several, um, there were what, 3 or 4 bullpens, and then the cells in total, with inside those. Like I said, I can't remember like how many of the actual cell blocks there that it had. It did have the solitary confinement area. It had a suicide watch room. It also had the drunk tank and the evidence area. Those were in the same room, and then also it had the main booking area inside of it, and then there was an interrogation visitation room that you do see in several different areas. Um, let's see, Dr. Sumner. Yeah, thank you so much for your help in filming this. Maybe here in just a little bit, I can pull you on and maybe have a dual conversation on this, since since you had also investigated this as well. I was trying to get Donald Martin to come on tonight because, again, he is one of the caretakers there at from Southern Paranormal there at the jail. And so I was trying to get him to come on tonight. He is a firefighter, and so he does work nights. He wasn't able to join us tonight. Maybe he will end up popping up here in the chat a little bit, but he wasn't able to come on live. I'd hoped so, but found out, a few days ago he wasn't going to be able to be on there. And as Dr. Sumner says, she says there was a drunk tank, 2 bullpens, solitary confinement, and a couple trustee cells. So thank you for confirming that. Like I said, for some reason, this location, I was having the hardest time remembering the layout of this. There were a few details that I remember, but I couldn't really remember all the fine details of it. D Hoot also says, in episode 2, I found that fewer things were happening behind you like in episode 1. Just looking for patterns in each episode this season. That's a very interesting point. And I love the fact that you're looking at some of the different patterns there, because, when we're covering these themes, it's always interesting to be able to do that, to see the similarities, see how things react. And when we cover multiple episodes that are multiple locations in the same season that are very similar in nature, it's always cool to see what kind of trends. And you're right. There was more that was interacting, just kind of out in the open. I think the disembodied voices were pretty much about the same in both of these places. The spirit box activity tended to get a lot of that in both of these locations. But I really kind of feel like the Fentress County Jail that we covered in episode 1, I really kind of feel like that was happening that way because it wasn't investigated by multiple teams. It had only been investigated by one other team. So I really feel like the old Attala County Jail, it had been investigated by multiple teams at the time. Southern Paranormal had been going in there before they opened it to the public. So they were more aware of what we were doing. So I believe that they were a little more out in the open. Plus, a different time frame too for when this jail was in operation. Old Attala, it opened quite a bit later than what Fentress County did, but definitely interesting to look at these triggers. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts as we go throughout this season, because we still have 3 more jails that we're covering, and going to be interesting to see how everything is set up here. So Janet says, it seemed like a huge maze-like facility. Was it easier getting around than it looked? Being that it was only one level, it was pretty easy. The problem was I was really surprised at just how narrow it was to go around some of those bullpens, because some of them actually had this it was almost like a air vent or something that you had to be fairly thin to and had to turn sideways just to walk through, and you were pretty much up against the bars whenever you went around a couple of these different bullpens. Um, and then let's see here. Mitchell says, only started watching recently, but I've noticed several times the voices say leave or get out. Do they really want you to leave, or are they just trying to scare you? That's a really good question. You know, it's something that happens really common, whether we're going to a jail, whether we're investigating the mausoleum, a cemetery. I've watched other investigators, and it seems like that's a very common thing that a lot of people get, is something saying to leave or get out. I feel like sometimes they really and truly want you to leave their space. And we try to honor that whenever, if we're in a location and we're continually getting those type responses, they don't want to talk to us. We will definitely leave their space. We'll leave recorders, static cameras, leave all of that to see if we can, catch anything possibly residual after we leave, or catch conversations. Other times, especially if it's somewhere like a jail, you're dealing with a little bit more, I'm not going to say negative, I'm not going to say dark or anything like that, but you're dealing with folks who probably had, they didn't want to be there when they were alive, and didn't want other people, messing with them, bothering them, maybe a little more aggressive, grumpier spirits. They may be trying to scare you. That does happen from time to time. In that particular location, I didn't find anything to be, very, very rarely have I found anything at locations that were truly negative or demonic in that sense. And I'm going to use the word negative and demonic as meaning two different things, because very rarely do you interact with demonic entities. Maybe a little more negative. So I'm going to distinguish between the two. And when I say negative, I just mean they're not the more positive spirits that you do come into contact with it, like some of the different hotels and just some of the different places. You're dealing with a different type of people. They're there for a different kind of reason. But from what I've found from just my experience, most of the time, sometimes they truly want you to leave. Sometimes it's more just, they're just really trying to just, get you to try to scare you, try to get you to evoke a different type of reaction. But that really is a good question. So I'm actually going to go ahead, pull it up on the screen, let it start playing. I'm going to be watching some of the questions over here and make sure that, I get to those, don't miss those. If you see something, if there's something, we're going to kind of talk through it. But if you see something, and there will be some that we do play out loud, some we're just going to talk through. And I'm actually going to, let me see if I can invite Dr. Sumner onto the screen if she wants to come on here, and we can kind of talk just a little bit about that night and about the location itself. I'm going to send that to her. If she wants to come on, she can pop on here as we're talking on this. So and as I'm waiting to kind of hear from her, I'm just going to make sure there's no more. There she is. Let's see here. Hey. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, so I thought that since you've been there and did an investigation yourself, and you were there during a short portion of the investigation, we could kind of go over some of the stuff that was captured during the investigation. And also, if you want to mention some of the stuff that you captured, just kind of talking about about the old Attala jail in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, kudos to you for being there by yourself that night. I mean, guys, listen, this woman is a trooper, because she, Jenny and I had investigated the night before, and the activity that we captured was pretty pervasive. I mean, we were capturing shadow figures. We heard disembodied voices. There was one time where I asked, "Who is your best friend?" And this man's voice yelled out, "Pete." So we had a great spirit box session. So the fact that Miranda went in the next night by herself was pretty amazing, let me tell you. But I know we had a question real quick about what it actually looked like, and just to kind of give you a visual. When you walk in, there's the administration check-in booking area, and then there's a little step forward, and right in front of that is the solitary confinement cell. Then you take a left, and it essentially becomes a T. So you walk down the main hallway, and there's cells and drunk tanks and evidence room along the main hallway here, and then a quick left turn to go back into the solitary confinement cells. And then at the top of the T are two large bullpen cells that are divided up really into two cells, so essentially four. So it's not as cumbersome as it looks as we're filming through it, or you're filming through it. But there is a lot of rooms that come off that main hallway.
Yeah, and that's, that I don't know why, but for some reason, this particular location, I can't remember it. I remember a couple minor, I call them minor. I remember the bullpens. I remember the drunk tank and the evidence room, being combined there, but I could not remember the entire layout of the cell. I don't know if it was mostly because I was going through it for the most part after dark and didn't really ever have the lights on, or if there's some reason, but I truly can't remember a whole lot about the look of this location.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you had just come off, a long drive down. You did not get a day tour of it to really orient yourself. And then we had it the next day. So, I mean, I think you only saw it maybe about 30 minutes in the daylight when you came over after our investigation, right before we left on that Sunday.
That's true.
So, I mean, yeah, you didn't get a whole lot of inspection time simply because you were on the road for so long coming down.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I investigated solo at the funeral home and actually ended up sleeping there.
Yep.
And then, because we kind of had this base camp, our two teams, if you will, had a base camp there in between both of those locations.
We had a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, I ended up sleeping and pretty well slept at the funeral home, went back, slept at the bed and breakfast for a few hours. And really at that point, it was like pulling stuff off my cameras, charging batteries, getting things ready, and then getting over there. So those 2 night investigations,
they're tough.
They're
tough. They drain you for sure. Yeah,
They
but your episode was fantastic. I think you got a lot of compelling evidence there, and again, to your point that you were there by yourself was just incredible. But I think that the spirits really did respond to you that night. As you said, I joined you for a little bit for the Estes method. One, really just to see that you were okay, and two, to help you with the Estes method there. And I thought it was extremely compelling. Just what you were capturing when we were there. I mean, I think I was there for maybe an hour and a half, maybe.
I think so. That probably at the most an hour and a half, I would say. Because, and I'm going to see if I can maximize the screen without there we go.
There you go.
Without throwing anything off there. So like I said, I'm just going to kind of let it play through there as we're talking, and it will get into the investigation. I love the fact, and of course, the announcement was just made a few weeks ago that the old Southern Funeral Home sold and is not going to be open for investigations. It's actually going to be open as a funeral home. So this was a great setup, though. The fact that you could go down and do a full weekend investigation at these 2 locations.
At 2 very distinct locations. So there's the jail. So the left, that's the administration building. The right is the actual jail building. So you see it's a long building and then a T at the top. But the fact that you could go and investigate 2 very distinct locations, right? A jail and a funeral home. It's not like you're investigating a hospital and a doctor's clinic. So that was an amazing setup. And I know that everybody who went to the old Southern Funeral Home had a great experience there.
Absolutely. Just just bittersweet,
Yeah.
glad to see it get new life and
Mhm.
and not be left, but sad that it won't be an investigation location.
Mhm.
Couple interesting points to bring out about this. And we did just see the map a second ago. This is along the Natchez Trace. And if you guys know me and watch the show, I love to cover locations that are on these amazing roads and these amazing trails. Hopefully be able to get back down there and do some locations actually travel the trace. And then also this location is the home at one point in time of the traveling electric chair.
Mhm.
I know you talked a little bit about that in your episode.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It made a couple of stops there. They're in Mississippi. They they did capital punishment, right? I guess. But yeah, I did travel around. It's the only traveling electric chair, I think, in the states, and made an appearance a couple times here in Kosciuszko.
Yeah. And Kosciuszko is right there in the center of central Mississippi.
Mhm.
So a lot of interesting history about that with General Kosciuszko.
Mhm.
And, we do cover a bunch of that information in the funeral home episode.
Right.
So kind of getting into this, this is a creepy place. And the activity for me, it started, I don't know if it was because I was by myself, but it started from right after you guys left up
Mhm.
until the entire night.
Right.
Very intelligent. I think that they knew that I was there alone.
Mhm.
And just spirit box sessions. It seems like anymore I don't get as much on my spirit box as I did at these couple locations, which was interesting that I got a lot of stuff at the Fentress County Funeral Home, or
Mhm.
excuse me, Fentress County
And
Jail,
jail.
kind of like this location here. It seems to be the obelisk did not say very much at this particular jail.
Mhm.
But it seems like the spirit box seems to be one of the tools of choice at these two particular jails.
It really was, especially for this one. I think we had one of our better spirit box sessions here, and then we also had an interesting flashlight session on our investigation. Now, if you're watching what she's going through right here, she's coming around the top of that T. So this is the larger bullpens where a lot of the inmates would be housed together. So there's two of those. So the T kind of goes around, but one of those was a women's cell, and for us, and I think for you too, you got some very interesting responses on the spirit box, and we also did a flashlight session there that had some interesting results.
I did, and I'm going to pull up when we're doing some of those. It's interesting that the voices were the same, and when I was in the female cell, I got female voices. This right here was wild. This disembodied voice there. I don't know what they were talking about, if they were talking about the tools, if it was somebody that was with me talking about that sound I kept hearing. But this was almost like a game of cat and mouse right here, because I was going around each of these different corners, and this was about the only time that I was hearing sounds behind me.
Yeah, and same thing happened with us, and so it really is. And to Joe's question, it is a smaller jail, right? It only has a certain number. Now you're walking here. Now we're going back into the solitary confinement cells. So there's, I think, 3 or 4 of those, and but there was a lot of movement. To your point, always seeming like it was behind you, or it would only communicate with you if you were in one room and they were in another. It was never in our episode. There was never a disembodied voice or response in the same room.
Okay. That at the beginning was the only time that I had the voice in the same time. But then again, you also heard a man yelling. It sounded like it was coming back from the solitary area. Same with the suicide watch cell here,
which is the one you're in. Yeah.
Yes. And so this one, which that kind of freaked me out when I was editing. I don't know if you saw that.
The light on the thing. Yeah, I just saw that too.
Yeah, I was editing.
Like I know she didn't miss that apparition behind her.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, it is.
Yeah, I see the reflection. It comes pretty quick.
It does.
It's because it's you. So there you go.
Yeah. I watched that and I was like, oh my gosh, I've caught an apparition back there. And then it was like, oh, but it literally took my breath away when I was editing at like 2 a.m. one night, putting this together. So what's kind of funny, now, of course, that was, again, some really interesting disembodied voices
Mhm.
here. But I had actually sat down, and the reason this is off center, which it actually really bothers me, but the reason it's off center, and I'm going to add the film to a blooper thing that I'm working on, but I actually sat down and there was a puddle of water in the chair. And as soon as I sat down to do the session right in front, I got my butt wet. But so that's why I'm
Oh, the
sitting
behind the scenes of Ghost Biker.
a little bit off kilter there. But yeah, so we had an interesting little session here with the spirit box. And of course, these sessions are a lot longer than they appear. They are edited for content, to show, we want to show that there are a lot that doesn't happen, but we want to make sure to cover what we do, and still, even though we're showing a lot that doesn't happen, we're trying to keep it within that time frame. So these sessions that were in these cells were truthfully a lot longer than what they were, or what we're showing, especially
Yeah, you were there for 7 hours, 7 or 8 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to play the audio on this next spirit box session, because to me it's really compelling, because one, it's the same voice throughout. It is not a different voice. And then the responses in the very beginning, it was like they didn't want to talk to me. But I'm actually going to stop this right quick. If you don't mind telling about the story that kind of leads me to the line of questioning that I was doing in this room about the guy who had committed suicide in that room.
So this was the gentleman. It was early 2000s, right? So he had become a little bit despondent, and he actually wrote some threatening letters to President Obama at the time. And some of the I think he made some threatening letters. So the Secret Service and stuff actually investigated this guy, and he actually ended up killing himself. Inside the jail. He committed suicide there. And so his spirit is said to be one of the most active spirits in this room. So when you go in here, this is actually, they had it at the end there, the evidence storage room. But I think right beside it, they had the solitary confinement cell.
I was hoping I had a good picture of the door, because how he hung himself was from that door right there, those bars.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because there's some bars up above that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a good picture right there when I went in of it. And so, of course, most of my stuff in this episode, I just want to kind of say it is filmed with a red light, which makes it easier for viewing on the eyes. So that's why a lot of this is filmed with red light when doing this. Also, that's something that is kind of quite common that we do get in certain places. Doesn't mean it's demonic or anything like that. I feel like that instance was to sort of creep me out and scare me. Doing that, being alone, there's a little something that makes you a little uneasy whenever you're in a little place like that, and you start to get numbers and certain things that are said. I will say this was filmed early on in the year. The temperature was in the 70s when we were in there in the room. The temperature was in the low 70s. So this particular room, it was colder. It was colder at this point, and then it was colder. It got warmer, and then it was colder again at when we came over to do the Estes session. We did have some stuff dropping. I believe the actual temperature at this point was around 70. So it was interesting that it was staying there. So I'm going to actually start the audio on this, and we can just kind of talk over it. Your wife not getting health care. That would be really upsetting to me too. And that was why he wrote those letters, correct?
Yeah.
You were unhappy about being in prison.
Can you give me your name? What is the name of the man that killed himself? Were you in here when the man killed himself? If you speak into this, I can hear you. Until you touch my leg. That was the temperature at 67.5. Can you turn on these flashlights on? Be quiet, that's cold.
And to Joe Shortridge's
Who was
point,
here last night?
this is interesting because you don't hear any other thing behind
No.
it.
Did you see somebody here last night? Bob? Who's Bob? You know Donald and Doyle? You know Doyle?
Doyle.
That one blew me away.
Yeah. And to Janet's question,
Do you
this
like
was
him?
this was done before Doyle passed.
Mhm.
Can you tell me how many fingers I'm holding up? Can you see me standing here? Are you gonna talk to me? No. What year is it for you? It's 2020.
It sounded surprised.
Yeah.
almost.
Who
Yeah.
am I speaking with?
And that's a question that we really love to ask, that we started asking early on in investigations, because it does set that baseline. So the fact that he was surprised
Where are you
is really
from?
kind of cool.
The woods? I'm from Tennessee. Have you ever been to Tennessee? I drove a long ways to see you. Why? Because I thought you might like a visitor. I just wanted to speak with you and tell you the story.
And they're clear enough you're understanding them in the moment, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, a lot of time I don't.
Yeah. You got to go back and
Moment.
listen.
Yeah.
Did you feel yourself? You did? Why? Can you give me some other sign that you are here? Can you light it up? Is there a call? All you have to do is get near it. And it will light up. Just come close.
Yep. Again, extremely intelligent.
You can light up one of these lights. That is tap.
Are you standing near me? Where are you standing at? I believe that was a disembodied voice there.
Yeah, I think you've gotten a couple of those on this episode.
Yeah.
Meaning it wasn't from the spirit box. It was actually a voice.
Why did you stay here? Okay. Would you like for me to leave? No? Well, then you need to talk with me. I ended up spending a lot of time in there just because, I mean, whoever it was that didn't want to talk to me at first, they clearly did, you know,
Mhm.
and didn't want me to leave. But again, what fascinated me the most about that session is that was the same voice, except
Mhm.
for a couple others that came through there and just very, very responsive and very intelligently responding.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point earlier, this was one location where the spirit box was really on point.
Mhm.
You know, for me, we've had maybe 2 or 3 other investigations prior to this one where the spirit box was compelling, but other than that, you just get a few things every now and then. But the location here, both for you and for us,
Mhm.
most of our stuff came from the spirit box, which was really kind of neat.
Mhm. Yeah, and again with that in Fentress County, but in this particular location, I don't think I got really any responses on the Ovilus, which is
Mhm.
interesting because that one is typically quiet. Whereas with Fentress County, they seem to be like working in conjunction with each
Mhm.
other.
Yeah. And to D Hoot's question, yeah, both our experiences and Miranda's experiences were the same or similar in this instance. As I said the night before, we had received so many different responses on the spirit box that were compelling and germane to the situation there, or to the questions that we were asking. And Miranda had the same result. So it was very cool that both of those tools, you know, we're getting similar activity.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, to get Doyle's name on the
Mhm.
spirit box, that's not a common name,
Right.
really.
Right.
And that was, you know, instantly that's kind of where I felt like I ended up making connection with that spirit that was there in that particular drunk tank because it seemed like he wanted me to go away and called me an asshole and everything up until I asked about Donald and Doyle and it's like, "Oh, Doyle." And
Mhm.
what's also interesting about that is, you know, while Donald and Doyle are this great team, you know, Doyle was very passionate about jails. That
Mhm.
was his favorite, and this was kind of a passion project for him. And
Mhm.
so, the fact that they recognized that they mentioned his name and recognized to me that that was really telling.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. He was
And
very passionate about this jail.
he was, and I will say, you know, and thank you, Janet. I saw your comment about the tribute at the end. That was one of those. It was hard to put together without you know getting teared up, but you know he did. Him and Kyle did stop by, did talk to them there at the very beginning of the investigation. So they did stop by, and it was really cool to you know, hear and you could really see and hear that passion when Doyle talked about it.
Mhm.
Um,
So there was just a quick view of the solitary confinement cells that were
mhm.
back there.
And so this portion of the video, this was filmed from the live, and you know, I apologize in advance for the graininess and the in and out of focus. Whenever you download the video from Facebook, it does compress it. But I love showcasing those lives. That was something I used to do a whole lot before I started doing the Ghost Biker season. Was every location I went to, I always did a live investigation there for about an hour, and I absolutely love doing that. Always got a lot of different interaction, and it's really cool to be able to go back and watch. And sometimes the microphone is not as good whenever you're watching, but there were folks that were actually seeing and hearing some of this stuff during that live.
Yeah. And, for me, I would assume for you, it's kind of like having somebody there with you in a location where you're completely alone. So I can understand the merits of a live for a solo investigator.
Yeah. The reason I ended up going live was, so I did the session there. I went back, did a couple different sessions in some of these different sections of the jail, and it got kind of quiet and a little bit eerie. And I thought, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was after 1:00, maybe, whenever I popped on live, and a lot of you folks are night owls, so
yeah, it was later.
Yeah, I actually had quite a few people jump on and watch, and it was really kind of impromptu because I thought that this would be a season episode, so I really didn't know if I'd be popping on. But I think I was on for maybe like an hour, or no, 45 minutes. I was on for 45 minutes.
Yeah, and to D Hoot's question, Soul Sisters does not have an SLS camera. Anytime that we use it, we borrow it from Ghost Biker. So we haven't used an SLS camera on ours in a while.
I'm trying to think if there will be.
There will be on your next episode.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I get a sneak peek, guys.
Yeah, so there will be next episode. I don't believe there will be on the next. I can't remember that one. And then the final one, there will be SLS activity on that one as well. So this session here was interesting because, so we're back in one of the bullpens, and this flashlight would not go off the entire time, and it actually stayed on to the point to where it ended up dying. And what Donald had told us about this, or Doyle, one of them, had told us about this area, was that when the lights would go off, they really kept this area lit for the most part, because when they would turn the lights off, the inmates would go crazy, and they would get it would get pretty wild. So it's interesting that this flashlight, regardless of whether I got up, turned it off, and I think I turned it off about 4 different times, and I've got static cam footage of it just staying on. I wasn't able to ever get it to turn off, and I believe that that's kind of a testament to what they were saying, based on the history they had, as well as their investigations that they do.
Yeah, and that's where we had some of our flashlight activity the night before.
Gotcha. And I'm just going back through here and looking to see if there's I saw a comment that Joe made earlier that I just want to point out, and this is kind of tying back to what Mitchell asked about them asking you to get out. I do believe that sometimes the spirits scare you by accident. I believe sometimes that, when people get scratched, or when people get touched and it burns or whatever, I don't believe it's malicious most of the time, because we don't know what energy it takes, whenever you're touched, or whenever a spirit chooses to interact with you in that way. So sometimes I believe that that's just sort of the manner of the reaction of your skin to whatever's happening. Now sometimes I do believe, and this was interesting too.
Yeah, I was going to say, go back to this one.
Yeah, let me go back here.
Just a scotch.
And I'm going to play the sound.
Walks around, been known to see shadow figures walk around the cell. This light,
I think I went too far.
It's okay.
They kept this area pretty much
light, because when they would turn the lights off, the prisoners would go kind of crazy back here. So I've been sitting on the far end of the hall, and this light will just stay on. I've turned it off multiple times and it keeps coming back on. So it seems like it just wants to stay light. Okay, I'm going to start this spirit box and see if we can get anything. Is there somebody here by the name of Bear? How many people are in this still? $11.
Very clear.
Mm-hmm. That was really clear. What are you in here for? Do you like the fact that I'm here by myself? Is there a woman in here?
And that's clearly a female voice,
Sounded like a female voice, actually.
like you said.
What year is it? Who is your president? I got the name Bob earlier. Is there a Bob in here? Very intelligent.
Direct response. Yeah.
They were really talkative in the drunk tank, but I've not really had as much luck in here in the last little bit with the SB7. So, oops. Sorry, I had my mic muted. And that tended to be the way it was. It was like at times it would just shut off, you know. They would, when they wanted to quit talking, they quit talking.
Right.
And just to kind of show, it's very dark back in that area.
Yeah, there was no ambient light at all in this location.
I mean, you're pretty much,
except maybe the one room up front, the
visitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were pretty much in this area. You were pretty much in the bowels of the building at that point. So again, we, I think right after this is when we wrapped the live up, or I'm trying to think if I did another session. That was something too. We heard a lot of in here, a lot of walking.
A lot of different movement.
Kind
of like shifting.
I'm beginning to feel like that's kind of something similar I've noticed at some of these different jails is the shifting and the walking. Sometimes I think it's inmates. Sometimes I think it's jailers. Residual.
Yeah, we definitely get that a lot here.
There's that going in and out of focus. And so, like you said, it's mostly like long hallways with
it's
rooms
just this one, the one main hallway there, and then you've got these little offshoots. So this one here is going to lead to 3 solitary confinement cells, and then directly across the hall, another set just like this, identical on the other side.
Did that connect? I'm trying to remember.
No, well, like I said, you've got this one main hallway, and then it shoots off.
Okay, I couldn't remember if you went to the end, if it just, I think it dead ended.
It stops in a shower.
Yeah. And those cameras that are there on the wall, those were Southern Paranormal's cameras. I think at one point in time they were talking of live streaming at one point from the jail.
Yeah. So again, this would be coming back onto the main corridor, If you head down this way, then you're going to go essentially out of the exit.
Yeah,
That's a little bad.
this one was definitely for sure a whirlwind investigation on I think there's always something to be said about some of these locations when you do them either on your last night in a place or second night, because I know the location that I'm doing next week, it was a last night of a whirlwind.
Yeah, that was a crazy one. That's one we collaborated on as well. So I'll probably be back on here next week.
I was gonna
But
say, so hopefully you'll be back next
Monday
week
next week.
to
But that one was definitely a whirlwind situation.
yeah. So so I'm wrapping up that live. I was having some battery drain at that point and so at this point you joined. I'm gonna go
Mhm.
ahead and I'm gonna pull this up because there's a couple disembodied voices.
Yeah. So even though it sounds like I'm close, it's just the acoustics in this building. I'm down the entire length of that corridor. So she's on essentially one end of the long T and I'm at the other.
Debbie?
Thanks, D Hoot.
I'm saying I typically do, but this place, I think I blocked part of it out. Blackmail.
Explain that. Go back a second and kind of explain that one.
That was
Yeah, it's
oops.
yeah.
So that one is interesting, and I'll move to it here in a second. Whoops. That one was interesting, and I'll move to it here in a second, or kind of move up to it. So obviously, whenever you're doing the Estes method, you've got your noise canceling headphones, you're blindfolded, and then you've got the camera that's on you. And so again, the goal is to say whatever you hear. What's interesting to me about this, and of course, I had no idea until I went back to review the footage, but somebody actually says blackmail before I hear it and say it.
So it's a disembodied voice. So that's a
Yeah.
disembodied voice that the voice recorder picked up. Miranda didn't hear blackmail through the headphones yet.
And honestly, I'm not sure because the theory behind obviously, there are you're hearing what is being said on the spirit box. But there's also a theory that sometimes some of the things you hear, you may not hear on that box. You may hear it through either telepathy or some type of, and I'm not saying that's the case. I don't know. I mean, remembering back, I don't think I would have said it if I didn't hear it, so I don't know if I heard it. I mean, if it said it on the box and said it in a disembodied voice as well, but this happens twice. And so it happens here. And then it happens when you ask if you had any sisters. So I'm going to go ahead, play this and show you what we're talking about.
Give me about 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to get it started, get a good sweep where it's set. And I'm just going to start calling stuff out. Debbie? Robbery? Blackmail? That was a man.
Was a man. You have any brothers? You said you were in jail for blackmail? 39. No. Sounded like a man that said something like "not mine."
That was interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
White
twice
man?
when asked about president, we would either get no,
No,
or not mine.
Mine. Yeah.
Did you get anything?
A little bit. You're saying a lot.
So it seemed like in the very beginning, we were getting a lot of responses on that, and then obviously, like anything else, it just kind of died down. Is the reason I stopped.
Mhm.
But a couple of those responses that you'll see later with especially with Debbie, and
Mhm.
then also it just kind of goes back to what happened with Bob when I got Bob
Mhm.
on the spirit box.
Yeah.
I'm really curious because I had asked who was there the night before,
Mhm.
and it said Bob. Now I don't know, maybe Bob was there in their world, the night before, but I was hoping to get a response from with you guys.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and like I said, the spirit box on both of the nights, I think were the most active tool that we had. We had a few flashlight sessions that were interesting, but nothing compared to the spirit box and the disembodied voices that we got as well. So
Mhm.
similar to what you got, and interestingly enough, in the same two rooms, we didn't get
Oh.
anything in the solitary confinement cells, those three there, nor the drunk tank. It was the evidence room, that first solitary confinement suicide watch room, and then the one bullpen in the back,
Okay, and so
which
in
is
this
where you're at right now.
yeah, so this was the women's cell, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting because the voices in this one, I'm gonna play this, they're all women.
Is there a woman who died in here? What was your mom's name? Do you have a husband? Huh. Sounds like a woman to me. It was something.
If I had one of these beds in here, I'd want to have one with a window. Did you see our book over there?
What were you in for?
Were you in for robbery? Drugs?
Prostitution?
Who are your cellies' names? How did you feel about having to use the bathroom in here?
You never know what might get a response.
Debbie, you said that name before.
What did you do, Debbie? Who was your president, Debbie?
Is that or behind you?
How did you die? Did you die of a stabbing? Were you shanked?
There's a couple of interesting things in there.
Yeah, a few.
So make sure my mic is working okay. So yeah, it like I said, and I'm just going to go ahead and show this with Doyle since we mentioned him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was definitely a good guy.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was actually a drawing that I did of Doyle that Donald had asked me to do for the memorial. So like I said, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And so it was really I liked being able to dedicate my episode to him. And I know that you all did the same with was it the jail or the funeral home?
We did it with the jail.
Okay.
The jail, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think maybe when you
funeral home. It was the funeral home. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say one of them you released, I think he was still alive.
Yeah, he was still alive on that one. So it was the funeral home.
Yeah. So so yeah, I don't remember what I was getting ready to say before that happened, but I know with Debbie, it's interesting because to get that name during an Estes session that happened before this, and then to be able to do that. I know a lot of people talk about recording the Estes session and doing all that, try to see if you can get what is being said on that when the person calls it out. Personally, I believe that kind of ruins it because that person is supposed to be that that conduit or that medium, if you will, in display. I think it kind of sort of ruins the session. However, to get that and then to later on also get that, I thought was pretty telling for the session.
Yeah, to get it twice, that was pretty interesting in two different locations.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, for me, that the spirit box session on both of ours in that location. Excuse me, if you investigate the Attala County Jail at any point, I highly recommend you take a spirit box because that, for us at least, on both of those nights, was a great tool.
Yeah, most definitely. And guys, definitely go. If you didn't watch my episode 2, you've got to kind of run through it here, but definitely sit down with some headphones, listen to that, hear some of the disembodied voices because we didn't play those while we were doing this. And then also, the Spirit Bot session, go back and watch that, and go and watch Soul Sisters Paranormal investigation as well. And that's on your website, correct?
Correct. And our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So go check that out. Watch both of them together.
Binge.
That's right. Binge and learn more about because Christy goes into more detail on the actual jail in Attala County on the historical side of things from her episode. on mine, just kind of touch on it a little bit, and get into it.
You give the appetizer, I give the entree.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. I want to make sure there's not any other questions here. Hello, Vicki Norris. Thank you so
Hey,
much
Vicki.
for tuning in here. And Randy Clay, thank you. Joe Shortridge. I've had a good crowd tonight and really appreciate, everyone's questions. And got a great episode coming next week. Putting
Very good
some
episode.
finishing touches on it. Interesting location. This is another location that we won't really get into all that, but that's another location that's you technically can investigate right now.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I think you're getting these episodes out now.
Right. I'm not sure how long it had been open before we investigated it, but and again, we'll talk about all this next week. I may see if I can get the owner on there as well, or the current owner. But again, just saying, this was coming off of a whirlwind investigation week, and it is a throwback. It is an investigation that goes back, I think, to 2019.
19, yeah.
Yeah. So going back and pulling out the archives, reviving from these.
It's all still good stuff, though. It's all good stuff.
It is. It is. Well, it's like if we do a dual investigation, you release a video, I release a video. I know a lot of the time, if I release one first, you always wait a little while. Same here. If you release one, I always wait a little while afterwards. So,
yeah.
But yeah. So again, thank you all so much for sticking with us, hanging out with us tonight. Your questions, your comments, for watching the episode, and stay tuned for the other. If you're going to be coming and seeing me in Kentucky this weekend, safe travels to you, and I look forward to seeing you at either one, two, or all of the events. I mean, it's going to be a really good weekend, and like I said, if you want to investigate somewhere really special and for a good price, supporting a great cause, because I don't see any of that money from the investigation. That is straight up to the Laurel County Shop with a Cop program. And again, in these rural mountain communities, that's something that's really important to these children. So we've got the link there on the Ghost Biker page where you can still purchase tickets. I think there's 5 or 6 tickets left. So get your girls, your guys together, whatever, and come on up to Kentucky, see us, and spend the night investigating. It's going to definitely be a good time. So, and then of course the jail.
Yeah, we got a lot coming up in October at the jail here. So, and D Hoot Selly is here. She's running around out there. She may have fallen asleep, but she is here.
She did pop up in the very
up for a minute.
beginning. Yeah. She's got to make herself known.
She's had a long day.
Yeah.
So.
But yes, you guys still can get tickets to the lantern tour. The why can I not think?
Living History Experience here at the historic Scott County Jail.
Yes, and that is on the historic Scott Co Jail website, and we'll have those tickets available up until next week.
Yep.
So anyways, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. Thank you, Dr. Sumner, for hopping on here.
Absolutely, always.
All right, and we will see you guys either this weekend or on Tuesday night. Take care, everyone.
Good night.